Let me start. We're talking about advertising program. We do have an advertising program, but it's a negative advertising program. Relocation Magazine ranks us 50 out of 50. Why? Well, I'll give you an example of a bill that's been bouncing around, keeps coming back all the time, which is a horrible bill, has never passed, but it scares the heck out of companies that are going to move here. And that is that there's going to be a ratio between the president's money, how much he makes, or she, and how much the lowest paid worker works. And it's a fixed amount, so you can't make more than that. Well, anybody that's been in the small business industry knows that sometimes you live on a very small bowl of rice for many, many, many years, and then finally it starts to move. And when it moves, you expect to make a lot of money. That's why you're there. That's why you struggle through the hard times, the 10 or 15 years sometimes it takes to build a business. But all of a sudden they want to come along and say, well, that's too bad. You've got to cap how much you're going to make. The fact that you struggled with very little money for 15 years doesn't count. And we're not going to let you make more than a certain amount of money. So the legislature has to learn that even if bills do not pass, and everybody in the small business community said, oh, thank heavens that didn't get through, that is on television. And it's heard all over the country. And it's a negative advertising campaign that gets out there in the heads of people that want to bring business into the state of Connecticut. So that's the one issue. We legislators have to be careful of what we're saying when we're at the mic, when we're debating things. And if we're debating negative issues, it's negative advertising and it's hurting the business in the state of Connecticut. I had about 16, 17 years ago, did a consulting job for a company in New York State, and they wanted to relocate. And we spent a lot of time down south talking to the people who were trying to attract people here. So how did it work? Well, the governor of the state, happened to be Georgia, sent his plane so that when you're down there for one day, you can see 6 or 7 different sites. And by the way, the sites were buildings that were about 90% finished, so you could move into it within 6 months if you wanted to. And what would it cost you to lease this? It would cost you $1 a month over what the state was paying, or the county, depending on who was doing the development, for the lending. Well, they were lending at a tax-free rate, so it was a very low rate, very advantageous rate. And by the way, after between 10 and 15 years, depending on which section of the state it was in, for $10, you owned the building. Wouldn't that be a great thing? Okay? Does the state of Connecticut do that? No. We don't want to give away welfare to business, as the quote goes. Well, let me tell you what happens when business prospers. People get jobs, they get income, and they pay taxes. One thing we desperately need, people earning money that are going to pay taxes, because our deficit right now is primarily driven by a drop-off in revenue, not the other way around. Even though we have gotten a little over-exuberant in our spending over the last 10 years, maybe very over-exuberant in the spending over the last 10 years, because we had the money coming in from Wall Street, and we didn't notice that the rest of our industry was either flat or maybe even going down a little bit. And all of a sudden Wall Street disappeared, and that big chunk of income disappeared, and all the programs that were built on that suddenly were driving us into a deep deficit. So we've got to look at that. We've got to, number one, it would be nice to see Wall Street come back up someday, but we have to build the base throughout our state, and we have to be more business friendly and stop talking about things like corporate welfare. Thank you.